They finally caught up with me. I always knew this day would come, but I had hoped to remain hidden forever. My name is Mark Stewart, though I've long abandoned that identity. 8 years ago, my life unraveled in the most unexpected way, and now the past was closing in on me.it. All started on an ordinary morning. I was at the office, immersed in work, when I realized I'd forgotten some crucial documents at home. I decided to make a quick trip back to retrieve them. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car, a battered old Ford Escort. I shrugged it off as a friend of my wife Martha, but a creeping sense of dread began to take hold. The front door was locked, but I managed to slip inside. The house was quiet, too quiet. As I moved through the rooms, the muffled sounds from upstairs grew louder. My heart raced. I had never imagined I would find my wife with another man yet. As I reached the top of the stairs, the unmistakable sounds confirmed my worst fears. I stood frozen at the doorway of our bedroom, where I glimpsed the silhouette of my wife entwined with Steve, her former college boyfriend. That moment, rage and despair battled within me. I wanted to confront them, to unleash the turmoil inside, but a sobering thought pulled me back. If I acted on impulse, I could ruin everything: my life, my children's lives. I turned and left the scene, replaying in my mind like a nightmare. The perfect life I had built was shattered. That night, I confided in an old friend, an attorney who laid out the harsh realities of divorce. Canada's no-fault laws meant I could lose everything: my company, my children, my freedom. Determined to protect what was mine, I devised a plan. I installed hidden cameras and began documenting every betrayal. It was a grim task, but with each recording I fortified my resolve. Martha's phone calls to Steve revealed their plotting, their desire for a life without me. With the evidence in hand, I made a calculated decision. I would leave, and Martha would not benefit from her infidelity. I sold my business under a veil of secrecy, emptied our joint accounts, and obtained fake IDs for myself and the kids. I convinced Martha to take the children to visit her parents, promising them a surprise trip to Disneyland. On the day she left, I executed my plan, crossing the border and leaving my old life behind. I told my children their mother had died in a tragic accident, a story they accepted with wide eyes and innocent hearts. For 8 years, we lived off the grid, working under aliases and avoiding detection. But as they grew older, doubt crept into my children's minds. Mark, my son, especially started to question our life. His rebellion escalated, leading to confrontations that challenged my authority. I had built a fragile world around us, but cracks were beginning to show. Then came the fateful day. Mark and Krista discovered their mother's Facebook page, and everything spiraled out of control. They confronted me with the truth, the damning evidence I had kept hidden. In that moment, the foundation of our lives crumbled. I realized I could no longer shield them from the truth. Panic surged as I contemplated our next move. Martha had contacted the authorities, and they were closing in. I knew I had to leave again to protect my children from the impending storm. But as I prepared to flee, Mark intervened. "We're not leaving you," he said, determination in his eyes. The tables had turned. Instead of me leading them into the unknown, my children stood by me, ready to confront the danger together. We pooled our resources and made a daring escape, driving toward an uncertain future. As we fled, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Perhaps with my children at my side, I could forge a new path. The past would always linger, but together we might find a way to build a future free from the shadows of betrayal. With every mile we traveled, I felt the weight of our secrets lifting, replaced by a newfound sense of freedom. We stopped at a small diner where we shared a meal and talked about our dreams for the future. Mark and Krista were no longer just my children. They were my partners in this journey. As night fell, we found a place to rest, a rundown motel on the outskirts of a small town. I watched them sleep, feeling a surge of love and protection. Whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. I would fight for my family, for their future, and for a chance to rewrite our story. In the days that followed, we devised a plan. We would head further south, away from the eyes of the law, and start anew. I would find work under the radar, and we would establish a new life, one where the ghosts of our past wouldn't haunt you. As we prepared to leave the motel, I turned to Mark and Krista. No matter what happens, we stick together, right? I said, my voice steady. They nodded, a fierce determination shining in their eyes. Together, we drove into the dawn, leaving behind the wreckage of our old lives. The road stretched out before us, full of uncertainty, but also filled with the promise of new beginnings. This time, we would not run from our past. We would face it head-on, united and unbreakable.